All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Healthcare for Us. My name is Erica
All
Ferriston.
right. Hello,
Oh,
everybody.
sorry, Paul. I think, yeah, there you go. Take two. I'm Erica Ferriston. My pronouns are she, her. I am the current chair of Healthcare for Us. We are a nonprofit, all volunteer. We're really jazzed about the all volunteer part. Organization dedicated to guaranteeing healthcare as a human right in California and fighting the larger fight for healthcare justice. Um, I know many of you on the Zoom tonight are active in the single payer movement. And I know that some of you joining us are coming to us for the first time tonight. And so I encourage you to check out our website, hc, the number 4us.org. I think Dennis is dropping that in the chat right now to learn more about what a single payer healthcare system is and the work that we do. So I have the privilege of serving on this board with co-chair Gina Viola. Gina, if you want to wave. And fellow board members who I will introduce. I'm going to start with our treasurer, Scott Peak. I think Scott's there waving. Our recording secretary, Alex Horner. Our corresponding secretary, Caro Fodera, who sends out those amazing email newsletters you probably got and learned about this event tonight. Sheila Bates heads our political team. And our outreach coordinator is Chung Sim. I'm not sure if she's on yet. And then we have our tech team and whatever support anybody needs team, Paul Newman and Dennis Resendez. So the format for tonight is we are going to start with the state propositions. I think I should have said in the beginning tonight, this is all about the California propositions and the Los Angeles measures. And we are going to start with the state propositions, beginning with the two dealing with healthcare. And at the end of the state propositions, I think there's about 10, we'll open it up for question and answers. And then after that, we'll have a quick call to action, and then we will move on to the local measures. And then following that, we'll also have a Q&A session, and we will close out the meeting at about 8 p.m. And just a couple of housekeeping items. So this meeting is being recorded. It's also being live streamed on Facebook. So we ask that you please mute yourselves. And while we do want to see your gorgeous faces, please turn off your video if your background becomes distracting. We will drop an agenda in the chat so that you can follow along and see what proposition we're on and which one's coming up next. Dennis is also going to be dropping in the chat links to resources that we think are helpful. And a recording of tonight's event will be available tomorrow on our website, on our webinars page, which is found under the resources tab. So if you thought we went too fast or you missed something, you can go back to the recording, check it out. And then also, if you have friends who are wanting to know more about these sometimes tricky propositions and measures, please send them to our website so that they can watch the recording. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Sheila to give us a grounding, and then we will put on our fins and dive deep into these propositions.
Are they fins that are cleaned by Tide?
Yes, are.
Sorry. Um, Hi, y'all. If you all could just take a moment, we just really wanted to ground ourselves because we're in difficult times. There is a lot going on. There's a lot moving. People have feelings about voting, considering the fact that some people cannot vote in this country, right? Because they are incarcerated or have felonies, or whatever the case might be, right? And also recognizing that this is unceded indigenous land that we are voting on, and democracy is being obliterated everywhere around us. And, it's hard times. And what is voting in this times? And we cannot vote ourselves to freedom, and we must vote and organize, right? We have to vote on these propositions, and that is not our only civic duty. That is not our only obligation to each other and to this country and to what we are doing as people, right? We have to do way more than that. So, grounding us in that sort of political ideology, and then also taking a moment to just sit with all that I just threw at you and all of what that means, and however you might be feeling in this moment. We're all coming into this meeting from work or other meetings or all of the above. And just dealing with the heaviness of life, and where these things are in, an idea of what does democracy mean when we've been demanding ceasefire for how long and it hasn't happened, right? So just taking that in, and letting it settle in your body, however it does settle, and if it doesn't settle, right? And just allow yourself to really just get grounded in the moment. Notice your breath, notice your heartbeat. If you feel called to do so, lighten your gaze. Feel yourself rooted into whatever you are sitting in. If you're standing, feel your feet more grounded. Allow yourself to settle. If you feel called to do so, open your palms to really open yourself to the universe. Lengthen your spine. Pull those shoulders down and back. Just notice the gift of your heartbeat, the gift of your breath. I invite you to take one cleansing breath on your own, and then we're going to take 3 collective breaths together. On these 3 collective breaths, I really want you to inhale through your nose, and we're going to hold it. And then I want you to audibly exhale through your mouth. We're going to inhale for 3, we're going to hold for 3, and we're going to exhale for 5. Inhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Last breath, make it your biggest and your deepest. Inhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want you to just take another quick inventory. Notice your heartbeat, notice your breath. Did anything change? Are you feeling tension anywhere? Feel free to stretch it out and move it around. Send some breath and some love to anything that is feeling tight or tense. Take one more deep breath, and then I invite you to open your eyes back again and look at the beautiful smiling faces of people in here who are trying to change the world. And with that, I'll pass it over to you, Erica.
Oh, thank you so much, Sheila, for that. So, again, for those of you just joining us, we are going over the California state propositions, Los Angeles local measures. Um, we had a team thoroughly research these, argue their positions on these with our board, did more research, checked in with other organizations, and that team is going to be presenting those propositions and measures tonight. And because we are healthcare for us, the lens of which we viewed these propositions and measures, it was through a lens of care. Does this further care for ourselves, for our fellow neighbors, um, for our city, our county, our state? And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex to start with the first proposition for tonight.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight. I'm starting us off with Prop 34. Prop 34 is one of two statewide props on the November ballot that directly relates to healthcare. There is nothing in this bill that benefits the public. If it were to pass, it would most likely be ruled as unconstitutional at both the state and federal level. Our recommended position to this is to oppose it with a no vote. This prop weaponizes patient protections in order to attack the AIDS Healthcare Foundation and revoke their nonprofit status for a 10-year period. It also permanently authorizes the Medi-Cal prescription drug plan as state law, which primarily looks like a money grab for the private sector via Centene, a company that has already set aside $1.25 billion for state settlements and future lawsuits regarding accusations that Centene overbills Medicaid programs. I'm going to screen share some quotes. Can everyone see these? Great, thank you. Okay, from the LA Times. The measure is an effort by the real estate industry to limit spending by the LA-based AIDS Healthcare Foundation, which has bankrolled several rent control initiatives, including one on the 2024 ballot. From Consumer Watchdog's letter to the state Supreme Court. The proposed initiative is a poorly veiled attempt by the California Apartment Association to silence a political adversary. If it is allowed to be put to the voters, no organization in the future will be safe from similar retribution by moneyed interests or moneyed opponents. This court should prevent this unconstitutional initiative from being placed on the ballot. From Ballotpedia's write-up. Susie Shannon, Policy Director of Housing is a Human Right, said the anti-renter California Apartment Association is peddling a deceptive, unconstitutional ballot measure cleverly disguised as a patient protection bill, but is, in fact, designed to hurt both patients and low-income renters. It is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Don't be fooled. The Patient Protection Act targets one organization, AHF, the largest HIV/AIDS organization in the world, and the leading organization working to expand rent control for the most vulnerable in our society, low-income seniors, veterans, single parents, and patients with HIV/AIDS. CAA, which does not represent patients, has shown they are willing to deceive voters in their quest for unbridled profits for the billionaire landlord class they represent, while patients and low-income renters suffer. Excuse me. A link to these visuals would be placed in the chat, and I also have here links to the articles if you'd like to read them directly. Now let's look, who's spending money on this? So this is from Cal Matters. So far, $45 million has been spent to get this prop passed. The supporters include the California Apartment Association and the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, which is also on the wrong side of another prop we're going to talk about tonight. Those who oppose it include the AIDS Healthcare Foundation and Consumer Watchdog, and they've raised $7 million compared to the $45 million invested by the California Apartment Association and their allies. We go to Consumer Watchdog. Prop 34 would also permanently revoke any and all pharmacy licenses, healthcare service plan licenses, or clinic licenses, prohibit AHF and its owners, officers, and directors from applying for pharmacy and other related healthcare service licenses for a 10-year period, and revoke AHF's tax-exempt status for a 10-year period. According to Consumer Watchdog, the proposed initiative is a poorly veiled attempt by the California Apartment Association to silence a political adversary. If it's allowed to be put to the voters, no organization in the future will be safe from similar retribution by moneyed opponents. This court should prevent this unconstitutional initiative from being placed on the ballot, and that was noted in their letter to the Supreme Court. The last page is also from Ballotpedia. It's a little wordy, so I'm not going to read through all of it. But if you want to go to the visuals, it will show you everyone that's in favor and also that's in opposition. So the summary for this Thank you. The summary for this is AIDS Healthcare Foundation is the reason that the city of Los Angeles has a health commission. In recent years, AHF has spent more than $300 million to fund rent control initiatives and buy apartment buildings across the country. So that informs why the California Apartment Association wants to target them. Prop 34 is the real estate industry targeting AHF as a power ground and to send a message to other organizations that challenge the unbridled power of real estate developers and landlords. So from any perspective, a no vote is clear. 1, we stand with the Housing is a Human Right campaign. 2, we oppose the real estate industry targeting organizations that fund rent control initiatives. And 3, making the Medi-Cal prescription plan state law is not in alignment with single payer or CalCare. And I pass it to Carol for Prop 35.
Good evening, everyone. The title of Prop 35 is Provides Permanent Funding for Medi-Cal Health Services. I'm going to screen share my notes. I'm going to try to screen share my notes here. Okay, how's that look? Okay, so increasing Medi-Cal provider rates is important, but how funding is secured and who gets increased rates are at issue. The MCO tax provides funding for Medi-Cal. And MCO stands for Medical Care Organization. So think Kaiser Permanente, Anthem Blue Cross, Blue Shield. California must request MCO tax funding from the federal government. It's basically like getting a waiver. MCOs pay the tax and the federal government matches the funding. If Prop 35 passes, California would request funding for the MCO tax on an ongoing basis. Policymakers can use the MCO funds to offset general funding money spent for Medi-Cal. So the pros of this is that millions of Californians with Medi-Cal would probably have better access to doctors, but there's a lot of cons that are just very concerning. So let's go through those. If Prop 35 passes, it would overturn commitments that were made in the 24-25 budget. And this would affect children with complex medical needs, older adults, and people with disabilities. Prop 35 raises concerns about health equity. It would prioritize the interests of private insurers who were among the architects of this proposition. They crafted Prop 35 to cap the tax rate they pay to support Medi-Cal. And the MCO tax isn't guaranteed. The federal government has indicated they may revise the rules governing the MCO taxes. The Department of Finance estimated the general fund could lose 2.6 to 4.9 billion in fiscal years 24-25 and 26-27. If Prop 35 passes, it could reduce flexibility in the state budget, which could negatively affect available funding for other key services. And this could harm Californians with low incomes the most. So who's for Prop 35? Well, there's a coalition of doctors, hospitals, and some community clinics. And HealthNet is a top funder. The Democratic and the Republican parties are both for Prop 35. Who's against it? The organizations that support non-physician community care providers and are concerned with health equity, because those providers would not get increases in pay under Prop 35. The League of Women Voters is against it. And State Senator Caroline Menjivar has spoken out against it, saying that she doesn't want Prop 35 to pass because it would negate everything the smaller community clinics fought for in the past year and a half. So our position is that we oppose it because although passage of Prop 35 would probably increase the number of physicians who accept patients with Medi-Cal, unfortunately, it leaves out promised increased funding in the approved 24 to 25 state budget for healthcare providers who have less leverage than physicians. Healthcare for Us is dedicated to advancing health equity, and Prop 35 could harm Californians with low incomes, people of color, children, older adults, and people with disabilities.
Thank you, Carol and Alex, for that deep dive into the healthcare props. We are going to move a bit more quickly through the other props, folks, because we really felt like you needed a real thorough review of the healthcare props from an organization who fancies themselves healthcare advocates. So I was tasked with the housing propositions. Sorry, my name is Gina. I use she, her pronouns. I have Proposition 5 and Proposition 33. So I will start with Proposition 5. And this is a bond measure, basically. It's sort of a bond measure. It basically is changing the voter approval rate. Right now, you need 66% of voters to approve on bond measures to raise bonds. This would lower that threshold to 55%. So on its face, it seems like a no-brainer. It's a housing bill. The reason we believe housing is connected to healthcare is because having a house is key to having good health. However, this really feels like another, potential boon to builders without gaining much in the way of affordable housing and absolutely no public housing. And basically, at this point, what we really need are bills that are going to be building public housing. And that has not been done in this whole country for decades. The other thing, which might be a little petty for us at Healthcare for Us, is this bill is being supported by Senate Majority Whip Aguiar Curry. And it's something that she has tried to pass a few times before and finally had to be the majority whip to get it on the ballot. So for that reason, she was not a big proponent of CalCare. Our meetings with her were not straightforward. She seems to have an agenda that's all to her own and all to her own district and doesn't have a lens on the entire state of California. So that, that can be concerning for us. We're not saying vote no on it. We're just not going to take an official position on it. So for Prop 5, Healthcare for Us is no position. So that's up to you, right, folks? Switching over to Prop 33, which is, at our friends that Feel the Burn. They've been working on this for a while. The rent is too damn high, and they're absolutely right about that. So we are a strong support of Prop 33, not just because they're our friends hosting it, not just because I happened to see somebody while I was visiting out of the country with a Prop 33 shirt on. Wild, how can that happen? It is because the rent is too damn high, and Costa-Hawkins has to go. If we are to make any headway in this state with housing folks, and folks, let's be clear, California has the highest number of unhoused people and also has an untold number of looming evictions of people currently in housing that are going to be turned out onto the street. So, we need all systems go on Prop 33. And then also, get engaged with that. Start paying attention to where those dollars go when this gets funded. And then also another petty part for Healthcare for Us, because we are activists and fighters, is Buffy Wicks is opposing this bill. Buffy Wicks, for those of you who don't know, actually single-handedly threw CalCare in the trash this last election cycle in the Appropriations Committee. So for me, if Buffy's against it, there's got to be, there's got to be a nefarious reason for that. So again, healthcare for us, we are in strong support of Prop 33, no position on Prop 5. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sheila.
Thank you. So, the next few propositions that we're going to talk about are propositions that are related to the criminal legal system. Please note that we are calling it the criminal legal system because there is nothing just about our justice system. So we refuse to call it that. And there are very clear connections between the criminal legal system, and that's why we think it's important to talk about these propositions, because we know that healthcare justice is racial justice, and racial justice is healthcare justice, and criminal justice is tied up in all of those things, right? And people cannot get well in a cell. And we know that mass incarceration is absolutely antithetical to healthcare. We know that people do not have access to healthcare when they're incarcerated, do not have access to quality healthcare. They do not have any real rights around what their healthcare looks like. And so, we know that women are held down and forced to give birth while in shackles, while incarcerated. That is antithetical in every way to what healthcare looks like. So we're going to start, just wanted to ground us in those facts, right? And give a little bit of understanding of why we're talking about this as a healthcare organization. But so the first proposition I really want to dive into a little bit, and I'm going to go quickly through these for the same reasons that Gina uplifted. But the first one is Proposition 6. And what this is, it's officially titled Remove Involuntary Servitude as Punishment for Crime Amendment. So folks may know that, well, a little bit of background. California did not enter this country as a free state in a real meaningful way, right? California did not allow for people to be bought and sold in the state of California when they entered this country. But if you already owned a person while you were in a previous state that allowed for slavery, you could bring them over. And so giving that context, right? And so because of that, what happened is that when slavery was outlawed, right, in both at the federal level and also in the California Constitution, it still made an amendment for it being allowed for crime and punishment. And so that was what the 13th Amendment was all about. And so this is really changing that. So that way, involuntary servitude and slavery is not allowed regardless, right? Because that is wrong. We should know that in 2024, the fact that we're having to finally change the Constitution in 2024 is despicable. But that's what it would really do. So it would repeal language from the California State Constitution, which currently allows for slavery and involuntary servitude as a form of punishment. The amendment also would prohibit the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation from disciplining any incarcerated person for refusing a work assignment, but authorize the department to award time credits to incarcerated persons who voluntarily participate in work assignments. Of note, there is currently no opposition to this proposition. So pretty no-brainer, right? That we should absolutely unequivocally vote yes on Prop 6. And so it really just changes specifically Article 1 within the California Constitution, and really just strikes out that first part of the language within Section 6, Article 1 of the Constitution. So the line that reads slavery is prohibited, period, involuntary servitude is prohibited except to punish crime. That line is being stricken. And so that way, this is no longer allowed within our Constitution, right? So it's really changing the constitutional amendment, which the Constitution in California, which is incredibly important. And we need to absolutely vote yes on Prop 6, because let's fully abolish slavery permanently. And it was really just a way to continue slave labor as they imprison more Black folks than anybody else. The 13th Amendment was a partial farce as they criminalized Black folks in existence through things like loitering, not to mention things like Jim Crow, the war on drugs, the war on gangs, 94 crime bill. And also, we also have to remember that former plantations across the country are actually now jails. So that's about a wrap on Prop 6. Moving on to Prop 36. This one is one that I think more people have heard about. And so this one is officially titled Increase Drug and Theft Penalties and Reduce Homelessness Initiative. That title seems a little contradictory on its face, I think. And so essentially what this proposition would do is it would increase penalties for theft and drug trafficking, and it would partially roll back on Prop 47, which was passed 10 years ago and made some theft and drug crimes misdemeanors instead of felonies. And it would also make a new category of treatment mandated felonies, while also decreasing the amount of money currently spent on treatment mandated felonies, which is a little bit ironic. So obviously, we are recommending a hard no on this proposition. And the reason why is because it would further the problem of mass incarceration instead of solving it. It unravels the limited progress that has been made in this arena. Additionally, mandated treatment is clinically proven to be less effective and usually has to be repeated. There aren't enough facilities. So what would happen to those who can't get into a program? Do they go to jail where oftentimes drugs are actually more accessible? This proposition was developed to prevent retail crime, which is bogus in its own right, and was also made worse by the fact that Newsom already addressed this. Of note, Newsom's actually against this bill, and it was also in conjunction with district attorneys. It has financial backing from retail giants like Home Depot, Walmart, and Target, right? So they're looking out for their own interests as opposed to the interests of us. Usually, if a major corporation is backing something, it's probably not something that's going to benefit the rest of us, right? And it reduces the amount that the state must spend on certain services because Prop 47, which is what this rolls back, actually reallocated savings from punishing, because when Prop 47 passed, since it changed some things from felonies to misdemeanors, that changed the amount of money that the state had to put forward in order to prosecute these cases and to put people in jail and the appeals and all of those things, right? And so it reallocated those savings from the punishment reductions to mental health and drug treatment and school truancy and dropout prevention and other victim services. But because the rollbacks of Prop 47 would be included in Prop 36, it would actually reduce the amount of money that the state must spend on mental health and drug treatment, school truancy, and dropout prevention and victim services, which very much actually makes the problem worse. So we are a hard no on Prop 36, and we are an absolute heck yes on Prop 6. And I will pass it over to Gina. No, not Gina. Sorry. Where are we
I'll
going?
take it.
Oh, Alex, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so the last four props at the statewide level all have to do with community well-being and equity. The first one that we're going to discuss is Prop 2. This is a very straightforward bill. We come up against a prop like this every so often. Prop 2 would approve a $10 billion bond investment to renovate, fix, and construct education facilities. 8.5 billion of that would go to K through 12, and 1.5 billion would go to community colleges. The last prop that passed was in 2016. It was Prop 51, which was supported by progressive groups, and our recommendation on this is support with a yes vote. There are seemingly no orgs or groups opposing this prop outside of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, which is also on the wrong side of Prop 34. Meanwhile, Prop 2 is supported by LAUSD, the California Federation of Teachers, the California Federation of Labor, the California Chamber of Commerce, and the California Retired Teachers Association, amongst other ones. The quote from Cal Matters is, "The money would be distributed through matching grants, with the state paying a greater share of costs for less affluent districts and those with higher numbers of English learners and foster youth." The connection to healthcare for Prop 2 is indirect. This is a part of our state's ecosystem. Investments in education improve the health and well-being of our communities, and also to note that the investment pays a greater share to our less affluent districts. So we vote yes on Prop 2, and I pass it on.
Okay, so I'll be going to talking about Prop 4. The title is Authorizes Bonds for Safe Drinking Water, Wildfire Prevention, and Protecting Communities and Natural Lands from Climate Risks. The state would borrow $10 billion to respond to climate change. Prop 4 funds address these issues: drought, flood and water supply, forest health and wildfire prevention, sea level rise in coastal areas, land conservation and habitat restoration, parks, extreme heat, farms, and agriculture. This is very straightforward. The pros are that it protects us. It protects our health, the economy, and natural resources. It's a shift from responding to disasters to prevention. And prevention helps us save money in the long run. Groups that are for it include conservation groups, the California Professional Firefighters, California Labor Federation, California Teachers Association, SEIU California, League of Women Voters, and the California Democratic Party. And once again, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is against it, and the California Republican Party is against it also. Healthcare for Us recommends yes on Prop 4. Climate change is the greatest threat to public health, not just our physical health, but our mental health also. We need safe, plentiful drinking water. It's vital to health. Wildfire prevention is important for our respiratory health. And extreme heat is a huge health concern. So we recommend yes on Prop 4. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Thank you, Alex. I have Prop 3, which I just heard Carol say it's straightforward, but this is easily the most straightforward measure on your ballot. Its approval just removes one sentence that was added via Prop 8 back in 2008, then later voided by our courts from our state constitution. Only marriage between a man and woman is valid or recognized in California. So Prop 3 rolls that back so that, we're recognizing marriage as marriage and love is love. And the connection to healthcare is, happy folks are healthy folks. But also this has some real serious consequences for folks, not being able to be a medical directive when someone's in the hospital is huge for same-sex couples. Even state registered domestic partners do not get death benefits from Social Security when someone passes away. So this helps rectify that. And, it's about darn time. We are in strong support of Prop 3 and urge you to vote yes on it. The other one that I have is Prop 32. Prop 32 is our raising of the minimum wage. So again, the way we look at this with healthcare is, wages and jobs are required for any sort of medical care in this country, unfortunately. Until single payer is a reality, we still have to pay premiums, co-pays, co-insurance. We have to meet all of these things, all of these thresholds just to see a doctor. So we are a yes on Prop 32, with the caveat that raising minimum wage to $18 an hour by January 25 it's still not a living wage. So folks, get out there and pound the pavement. The fight for 15 is long over. We know that a living wage at this point Some measures have that at $24 an hour. For California, that's up to $43 an hour for a living, thriving wage. So, but let's start with 18 and and climb up as quickly as we can. So, healthcare for us is a yes on Prop 32. And I'm passing it to, oh, I
You're
think
you're
Sheila
gonna
for
pass.
action.
Mhm.
Ways to get involved.
Yes, yes, thank you. So, we talked about before, right? We must vote and organize, right? And so we have to be out here on these streets. We have to be doing the work to make sure that we make the world that we live in and the way that things are structured in policy and what elected officials come in, that we need to make sure that we're doing the work for that, right? Because we know no matter what propositions and what measures pass and fail, no matter who is elected in office, no matter who loses, that we have to hold folks accountable to our agenda, right? And to making sure that they continue to do what they say they're going to do. And sometimes we need to remind them what's up and that they need to not do things, right? But we need to be out here on these streets and we need to make sure that we are plugging into this work. So please, if you are interested in anything, in any of these propositions, and you want to get involved in either supporting these propositions or opposing them as discussed here, if you are against any candidates, we are going to move into some stuff around LA County and LA City there. There are some things to also plug in there. Please send a direct message to Alex. Alex will be taking note of anybody who wants to get involved in these propositions and in this work. Reach out to Alex, send her a direct message. We will get your contact information and we'll make sure that we get you directly connected to the people who are on the ground doing that work. And we greatly appreciate you all being here, and we hope to see you out here on these streets canvassing for and against these things as necessary. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Sheila. Okay, so we're going to have a quick call to action and then we'll move into the question and answer section for the state propositions. And the first one to go at that time will be James, who I see has his hand raised. But first, and I know those of you on here that are hardcore in the single payer movement, you got this, you know this. But for those of you who are new, as Gina mentioned earlier this year, the California Nurses Association had a bill known as CalCare. It was the blueprint, the first step in implementing what would have been the best healthcare system in the world, efficiently delivered to every human being in California as a right. There would have been no more copays or deductibles. People would be free to see any doctor of their choice. It would be more money in your pocket, and it would have stabilized the state's spending, which right now is the costs for the state are out of control. So after this bill passed the Assembly Health Committee, it went to the Assembly Appropriations Committee, where the chair of that committee, Assembly Member Wicks, who despite having co-authored the previous CalCare bill, and despite having campaigned on CalCare, like Governor Newsom campaigned on passing single payer, this legislation, she killed the bill. And she did so disingenuously, citing budget concerns, even though this blueprint bill had zero costs. So the call to action is we have a letter. I think Dennis has dropped the link in the chat. And this letter is a letter that you can sign and send. It's like a click to sign and a click to send. It'll go to Assembly Member Wicks. And it basically states that we know that her reasoning for killing the bill was unsound and her failure to uphold her campaign promise is unacceptable. So I'm just going to give a couple of minutes for you all to click on the link, read the letter, and if inspired, click to sign and send the letter. And if you feel you want more time with it, please feel free to copy and paste the link to look at later. But I'm going to go ahead and give you guys 2 minutes to do that. And then we'll start with the local measures.
If you're watching this
Consider
after
it.
the fact on Facebook, the link will be in the comments.
Oh, thank you, Alex.
And if you already sent your letter, you can always send the link to 5 different people and ask them to send a letter.
Look
So
at you,
not
bundling the votes.
yes, not only are we educating each other tonight, we are also being activist by taking, active action in something that will make a difference in our lives moving forward. So thank you for taking this time to do that.
Yes, thank you, thank you. And if you could throw an emoji up, throw your favorite reaction up on your chat when you are done sending your letter.
Thank you, Patricia Clark.
James, does that mean that you sent your letter?
Thank you, Dennis. Knowing James, he already sent the letter.
And thank you, Melanie. Yeah, feel free to drop an emoji in the chat or to just put a reaction on your screen.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, we have just about a minute left.
Thank you, Taiji. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Linda. I see that smiley face in your square.
Thank you, Beatrice.
We're often told that letters are the strongest support, the way to, sway support with these legislators. So it's really is impactful, and we're really grateful.
Thank you, Teresa. Yes, they keep track of them and they tally them. Thank you, Victoria.
And Anthony.
Thanks, Anthony.
Okay, so that's time on that. Again, you can cut and paste the link. Thank you, Elizabeth. See you on there with your little heart eyes. And you can, what's that, Sheila?
I said, and thanks to Elise with the gymnast.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Elise. So we are going to open it up now for Q&A. And if someone can unmute James for him to ask his question, that would be great.
Yeah, tell you, I did vote by mail, and I did, vote for the propositions that were for the League of Women's Voters, and vote no for the Howard Jarvis ones. And for the Republicans, I just knew basically what they were.
Thank you, James. Did you also have a question?
Also, gotta say that our election is really something that's biggest in our lifetime. About not just about this meeting about the healthcare thing. It's about saving democracy. That's really the big thing.
Thank you so much for sharing, James. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate the seriousness with which you take your vote. And thank you for being here tonight. And I do want to say we do have 15 minutes set aside for questions and answers. So please, we have plenty of time if anybody else would like to ask any questions.
Aaron, is that your hand?
Yes.
Yay.
Hello. Alex, I wanted to ask you a little bit about on 34. I'm just looking at my ballot and it's saying that it's saying it's about prescription drug, that they would spend this money from prescription drug program on direct patient care, right? Which sounds good. So I want I mean, I know it's not, but what I'm saying it because it sounds like it's a bait and switch kind of prop that is confusing. But if I were to try to distill this into just like a sentence for how to talk to, my mother who doesn't take in all that information, what would I say specifically to that?
Well, I know and love your mother, and if she's watching this on Facebook later, hi, Patsy. It's a great question. Thank you so much for it. So the core of the bill is that any organization that is receiving funds for this purpose has to spend 90% of those funds directly on a specific kind of patient care. So if we're looking specifically at AIDS Healthcare Foundation, the other costs they have, of course, administration costs, they have housing costs, there are other kinds of care outside of what's allowed for in this very limited scope. So what they're doing is, and that's why it targets the AIDS Healthcare Foundation specifically, because how they assist people is pretty broad. So what they're doing is they're creating an unreasonable and unhealthy barometer or like threshold to meet in order to remove AIDS Healthcare Foundation's non-exempt status and their access to the pharmacy models and care that they provide.
So it's really just about getting like screwing that organization for better.
It really would only apply to AHF, and as far as my research has lent itself. But what I didn't find was any complexity around it, which was the people that are in support of it do not have sound reasons for supporting it. And the biggest thing to me, so there isn't even here's the gray area where it's good. Literally nothing in this serves the public. But the other part of it is, if we look at our housing crisis and we see that AIDS Healthcare Foundation has spent $300 million on rent control initiatives and buying housing across the country, that's their threat to landlords and real estate magnates, people like Rick Caruso. So that's the, the lawsuit, you would have a loss basis. The loss basis is that AIDS Healthcare is coming after landlords, and the landlords decided we're going to come after you.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Oh, I see a great question in the chat. I'm going to read it out loud. It's from Elise. She wrote, not sure if this question can be answered, but I'm confused by Wick's turnaround that you said she explained it as due to budget concerns and that this is disingenuous. What's the real reason? Lobbying? Yes, Elise. We believe she was lobbied by Governor Newsom to kill this bill. Because the further this bill advanced, Ashkara was the author of this bill, and we believe that we had the votes to pass it in the assembly. And so then it would have been kicked up to the Senate. We don't know what would have happened there, but the closer it gets to his desk, he's taken, I think it was like $23 million just from, Blue Cross Blue Shield, I think it was. So, he's taken a lot of money. It was shocking to me, and I consider myself a pretty seasoned veteran at this. She was a co-author on 1400 and she campaigned on it. I don't know if you know who Addie Barkin was, but he was a leader in the movement. And our colleague at Hollywood for CalCare put together a clip of a lengthy interview she had with Addie Barkin, where inches from his face repeatedly said that she would champion single payer health care. But I'm going to stop there. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add. And I'm also going to scan the chat to see if there's any other questions. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the comment about the letter. Yeah, Elise, 23 million to Newsom. It might even be 27. I might be undercutting it. But yes, you can Google it. It's there in the Google. And if Carolina Reardon, that's our Hollywood for Cal Care partner, she knows that number right off the top of her head. Do we have any other questions? Oh, Chung Sim, welcome. And by the way, Chung Sim Lim is one of our board members. She wasn't here when we started, so. But go ahead and unmute. Yeah, Chung Sim.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on what people are saying about Buffy Wicks. The reason why it's really important for you guys to send letters to her and share the letters widely. Share it with all your friends and relatives in California. And the reason why it's so important to let people know what she did was she blocked CalCare in the dark. She did it without.
We lost your audio, Chung Sim.
Connection. Sorry.
Yeah, you're back. So you were saying, so yeah, when Chung Sim said she locked it in the dark, this was a dark vote. So we can see how people in that committee voted, and she is solely in charge of that. Chung Sim, can you continue?
Yes. Sorry, Erica, there was no vote. She locked it in the dark. She didn't bring it up for a vote. So we need to expose her, shed light on what she did, because by keeping everything under wraps, she can get away with what she did. We need to hold them accountable by exposing what they did so that people are aware, like constituents are aware, other people in California are aware. So please share this letter far and wide. Ask your friends and relatives in California to bombard her with letters. Just keep that pressure going.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions before we move on to the Los Angeles measures? Okay.
Right on time.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And for folks outside of LA County, this is your invitation to go ahead and drop off if this doesn't apply to you, and have the rest of your evening back. Because what we're diving into now are the LA County measures. So we are going to start with Measure A. So Measure A is increasing and replacing the current Measure H funds for the county. Not sure how many of you recall Measure H. It's very controversial because it has been raising a little more than $500 million for the last 10 years for LA County to tackle homelessness. And we are a yes on this bill, but we are a very strong yes and. It is really time for us to get involved in holding our county's feet to the fire about where these monies go. So what Measure A will do is it increases the current quarter-cent tax that we voted for originally on Measure H to a half-cent tax. So it's essentially doubling the kitty. It will be a $1.2 billion per year budget, specifically to build affordable housing, right? And to develop some renter protections and other things to prevent people from falling into homelessness. I recently personally sat through a Measure H listening session just about a month ago, and it's clear the monies are being spent to manage the situation, not solve it. So it's very difficult to go out again to the taxpayers and say, okay, let's pay some more tax to solve this ever-growing problem. So, present at this meeting were dozens of providers who get paid from these funds. So again, it's really important that we as constituents, if you're going to vote for this, then show up to these listening sessions, right? reach out to your board of supervisor and find out who on their staff is responsible for allocating these funds. Because while we need this, what we really, really need is the community to hold folks accountable for the funds that are getting raised. We cannot keep managing a situation like this and having nonprofits enrich themselves off of this. We really need to solve this. I recently read that it would take $20 billion to solve homelessness for the whole country, the entire country. Do you want to know what the state of California spent on homelessness last year? It was $26 billion. So please vote yes on this. But if you're voting yes on this, commit to getting engaged and holding your electeds accountable for where this money goes, because there is enough money to solve this for the county, even for the state of California, if we all start demanding that those funds be used to solve it and not manage it. Thank you, everyone. Strong yes on Measure A, and stick it to them. I am passing to Sheila.
Hello again. So I'm going to be briefly talking about Measure G, which is complicated. It's really a mixed bag of things. So the official title is Measure G, Proposed County Charter Amendment. I said cheddar. Charter Amendment, Los Angeles County Government Structure, Ethics, and Accountability Charter Amendment. So what this measure would do is it would expand the Board of Supervisors from 5 people to 9 people. It would also essentially create an LA County mayor by making the current CEO position an elected position that would be above the Board of Supervisor, which of note, all the digging that I did into this, there are no term limits currently listed for this position, and they would have control over all departments and would be above the Board of Supervisors. It would also create an ethics commission and a legislative analyst to review policies and require county departments to present budgets in public meetings. So this is really a mixed bag, right? It sounds really good on its face. This measure was really rushed by the Board of Supervisors. It was a close vote. Remember that there are currently 5 Board of Supervisors, right? 3 of them voted for it, 2 of them voted against it. And it was the most progressive member of one of the most progressive members of the Board of Supervisors who voted against the bill, or voted against moving the measure forward. And we have grave concerns over this, beyond the fact that it was super rushed. It's really misleading. It looks good on its face, but ultimately it would actually really undermine the progressive vote and the Black vote in LA County. It would create more bureaucracy. And again, it's the fact that the position that would be created above the Board of Supervisors, that would essentially create like a county mayor or like a county manager, if folks are familiar with sort of like the city manager model, right? It would put them above the Board of Supervisors. And there is currently no term limits listed in that, right? So that means we don't know how long that person would be elected for. It's also deeply concerning because of the fact that they have so much control over everything, right? We know that things at the Board of Supervisors are very split. I get the fact that, yes, each Board of Supervisor has a current constituent count of about 5 million or something stupid. It's wild. It sounds really good on its face, but it's ultimately would be very deeply concerning. I don't know if folks are familiar with that city manager model of governance, but it really creates an additional barrier and oftentimes prevents progress. And that's one more person that you have to lobby in order to be able to get things passed, in order to get things to move. So it's absolutely detrimental to our movement, right? As a progressive movement, as a racial justice movement, to be able, as a healthcare justice movement, to be able to move this forward, to be able to move anything forward and do anything progressive in the county. So HC for Us recommends a no on Los Angeles County Measure G.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about Measure E, which I think is much more straightforward. The title is Emergency Response and Infrastructure Special Parcel Tax. This parcel tax would be a funding method for improving communication, hiring firefighters and paramedics, and purchasing new equipment for LA County firefighters and paramedics so they can better serve the public. This is a citizens initiative. A firefighters and paramedics union gathered over 180,000 signatures to get this on the ballot. It would be 6 cents per square foot increase on certain property projects and structural improvements like home additions for business and residential people who live within unincorporated LA County and 58 cities that receive fire service from LA County. So some of those cities include Azusa, Inglewood, Lakewood, Pico Rivera, Signal Hill, West Hollywood, and Whittier. So property owners in the cities and unincorporated LA would pay the parcel tax. So this money is really needed because they need new fire engines and rescue vehicles. The communication system is 30 years old and it's based on landlines. It's not based on cell phones. So it's incompatible with cell phones. So that is a really big reason to vote for this proposition. The paramedics need a better communication system with emergency departments. They need GPS mapping due to inadequate response coordination in LA County. And they need thermal image cameras so that they can locate people who are trapped or people who are in fires and there's a lot of smoke around. So they need those thermal image cameras so they can find and rescue people. And they need more staff. LA County Fire is short-staffed on nearly 2/3 of its calls. So some good things about this bill, the funds are dedicated, so they can't use the funds for other departments. There's an independent citizens oversight committee. There's exemptions for low-income and low-income seniors who wouldn't have to pay the parcel tax. And this new equipment and new staff would result in improved response times and therefore improved health outcomes. Groups who are for it, the LA County Federation of Labor, LA County Democratic Party, and the California Professional Firefighters. Against it, as before, the Republican Party of LA County and the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. We'll just start calling it the Harvard Taxpayer Association. So we recommend, Healthcare for Us recommends yes. Faster response times save lives and mitigate injury during emergencies that are due to medical problems, accidents, fires, and earthquakes. We need faster and more effective responses to emergencies. Paramedics are part of the healthcare delivery system, and we need to support them. That's it.
Thank you. So just a few more things. So it also at the LA County measure, at the Los Angeles County level, we also want to talk about the DA, right? We do not endorse a candidate, but we can say that there is a candidate out there that you shouldn't vote for, and it's Hotchman, right? We know that LA County has done a lot in terms of changing the ways that we look at the criminal legal system and the way that we think about criminal justice. And it's incredibly important that we continue to move these things forward. We know that crime is down. That is antithetical to what you're hearing out there. But if you actually look at the data, if you actually look at the numbers, if you actually look at the stats, crime is down. And we know that over policing, we know that punishment and mass incarceration does not work. We saw that with the 94 crime bill. We saw that with the war on drugs. We saw that with the war on gangs. It does not do anything other than throw more Black folks in jail. It separates our families. It tears them apart. We know that we need to also prosecute killer cops. Black Lives Matter Los Angeles fought hard to get Jackie Lacey out of office, right? That was 4 years worth of work to make sure that she was unseated. She was unseated. She was replaced by somebody who helped to get people like Prince Akili, who is a member of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, out of jail. He was taken out of his seat at the age of 16 and locked up for almost 20 years for a small crime that he committed as a child. As a child. And he is now out because of the work of Gascon, right? And we have to, we are not in support of prosecutors. We are not in support of the system as it exists. And we know that he has done things to prosecute killer cops, right? Christopher DeAndre Mitchell's family, Christopher DeAndre Mitchell was killed on December 9th of 2018 by Torrance PD. The cops who killed him are facing felony charges. We know that wouldn't have happened without Gascon. We know that the cops who killed Ryan Twyman, or the officer who killed Ryan Twyman, was in jail. Not just was actually convicted. Not just they move forward with charges, but he actually spent time in jail. And it was very healing to his family to be able to say, take your punk ass to jail. That is his sister's words that came out of her mouth as her impact statement. It's incredibly important that this moves forward. If anybody belongs in jail, it is killer cops, right? It's not our loved ones who need care before things happen, right? It's not the fact that we need, it's not people being thrown in jail, but it's instead that we need transformative justice. But while this system exists as it does, the people who actually hold up the system of cops can be the ones sitting in jail, right? And so we know that this is what Gascon has put forward. We know this is what Hotchman is going to be against, right? So if you are for what has happened in Los Angeles County over the last several years, if you are for the things that we have seen and the progress that we have seen made, we need you to vote no on Hotchman, which means, you know what it means, right? So please, let's continue to make sure that this happens. Please tell your friends about it. Please make sure that they know the real truth about what's actually happening. The fact that crime is down, the fact that what Gascon is doing is working, right? And so that means we need to vote against Hotchman to make sure that we're able to continue this progress.
You know,
Also,
oh,
sorry.
go ahead, Zoe.
No.
I was just going to say, Sheila, of course, I agree with you. And when we look at the money that's been raised for this race, $3.9 million has been raised for Hochman, and versus $678,000 for Gascon. And Hochman's major donors include Rick Caruso and the LA Police Protective League, which is, you know, the Los Angeles Police Protective League and law enforcement associations in general are the only quote unquote unions, we call them associations, that can make their contracts state law. So that already is a big red flag. But one thing that I wanted to share is over the last 2 years, I've been invited into Zooms where Gascon was talking to mostly wealthy West Siders and folks from like Westwood, Beverly Hills area. And what I heard over and over again from the concerns was about the increase in crime and also our housing crisis. And to Sheila's point about crime going down, I think one thing that people don't seem to be aware of, if you're not a person who goes to police commission, is that LAPD releases their crime stats every month and they're public. They're called CompStat. So when I see the narratives that are uplifted in the media to discredit Gascon's work, I just want to name that it doesn't actually track with the data. And anytime that there's that kind of discrepancy and we see millions of dollars being poured into a race that opposes the progress we have made, it's a big red flag. And I'm no on Hochman with you.
Absolutely. And we also have to make that connection, right, to Alex's point of the fact that Why are another reason why that the police are supporting him, right, is because they know that he's not going to continue those prosecutions against cops when they kill people, right? Under Jackie Lacey's tenure, over 600 people were killed by the police in her tenure, and she didn't prosecute any of them. And guess who supported her? The LAPPL. So is it shocking that the LAPPL is mad at Gascon for doing something different and for actually holding them accountable or trying to hold them accountable, whereas Hawkman, however you pronounce it, I don't care how to learn how to pronounce his name because he's not going to win. And I'm not going to have to ever say his name again after November 5th. So I don't care how you pronounce his name. His name is You Ain't Winning. And anyway, so we know that, sorry, I lost my train of thought because I'm a ridiculous person at times, y'all. But we know that they want to maintain what was previously the status quo. They do not like the fact that things have changed under Gascon and that they actually will be held accountable and that they're scared around those things, right? And so we have to make sure that we that we continue to hold cops accountable, that we continue to vote our values, right? Not our fears. Crime rates are actually down. They're at the lowest that they have been since the 90s, y'all. And so this is nonsense. They do not believe their lies. Tell everybody that you know to vote no on Hotchman. And then we're going to make a transition to stuff around the city, right? And yes, that is absolutely where I'm going. Thank you, y'all, for the chat. You know who else the LAPPL is supporting? Not only is the LAPPL producing, supporting that H man, whose name we're just going to call him that. Not only are they supporting him, but they're also supporting Kevin De Leon, right? So Kevin De Leon, as y'all know, is a racist. He is anti-Black. He is anti-poor. He is anti-Indigenous. He is anti-renter. We were just at his debate the other day and made sure that he was reminded that that KDL is anti-Black. We don't want you coming back. KDL is anti-poor. We don't want you here no more, right? And so it's not only all of that, but it's also the fact that there was the leaked audio that made it crystal clear who he was. And when, as we have been told by Maya Angelou, when people tell you who they are, believe them and vote accordingly, right? And so he has made it clear that he is against all of us in this room. He is against all of us who, everything that we stand for. So we encourage a no on Kevin De Leon. He's in CD 14. If you live in that district, make sure that you do not check the bubble by his name. You check the bubble by the name of the other person, because we, again, do not endorse candidates, but we will say no on a candidate. And we say no to Kevin De Leon. Kevin De Leon must go, right? He compared a Black child, to a handbag. He minimized the power of Black folks in the city of Los Angeles by comparing us to 25 Black people yelling. Guess what? I'm one of those 25 Black people yelling, and we're going to yell you right about out of office, right? And it's not just me. It is all of us in this room. I know that it is Erica. I know that it is Gina. I know that it is Alex, right? I know that it is all of us saying that Kevin De Leon must go. So make sure that you vote accordingly, right? He also talked about Oaxacans, and he also talked about he tries to say that he just didn't say anything when these racist comments were being said. No, you also said some things yourself, right? And we have continued to be on him since this audio leaked, and we will continue to do so. He also voted for 4118, right, which criminalized poor houseless folks, right? We know that he lies. We know that he also assaulted a community member, one of his own constituents, a father, a young Black man who is just trying to make sure that the community and this world is safer for his young Black son, and he physically assaulted him. We have to make sure that this man gets out of office. He was even told by Biden to step down. If Biden's telling you to step down, right, we've got something going on. And I'll shut up and I'll pass it to the next person. Thanks.
That
y'all.
was going to be my point, Sheila, is the attention that was given to that audio leak. It's not just all the things you mentioned. Those are enough for me, but also that they were violating the Brown Act. I don't know if you mentioned that. They were working to make agreements about how we redistrict LA behind closed doors. And that got national attention that, as Sheila said, Biden spoke to, said everyone involved needed to step down. And Gil Cedillo had already been voted out. The other two involved stepped down, and Kevin De Leon was the only one who didn't. But also, on a policy level, his district is Skid Row. And so when we're looking at, has he, in addition to all of these awful racist comments and the backdoor dealings that he's been doing, has he served his district? And the answer is no, also to that. It's particularly important for CD 14 that we get someone who's going to work with the other council members, not just to advance their political career, but to have real tangible solutions to the problems our city faces, which there are, right? We have a real chance at city council to make true progress over the next 2 to 5 years. We can't do it with Kevin DeLeon in that seat.
Absolutely. Of note, he also wears a Israeli flag at all of the city council meetings, which is also just a little bit ironic. He's very pro cop. He's very anti us. And he's got to go.
Thank you. And I just want to remind people that if you want to take actions, there are active canvases going on to make sure Kevin DeLeon is not reelected. There are probably canvases going on to support Gascon. And so just send a direct message to Alex if you're interested, and we'll get you that information.
Of note, the next community walk against Kevin DeLeon is on Sunday at 1 p.m. in his district. Make sure you reach out to Alex if you are interested, and we'll make sure that you get all the information about how to plug in and show up. Make sure you're following BLM LA on Instagram, and you'll also get all the information about where he is as well.
Also, that district doesn't like him. When we did the encampment there for 18 days, the people in the neighborhood came to take the trash, to bring generators, let us charge what we needed to off of their electric grid. I mean, one of the things that's been incredible about that work is how community building it is. We are against KDL, but we are for building power in our communities, and what's happening around KDL as a result of his actions is a really beautiful and inspiring thing to be a part of.
It's also interesting to note that he was trying to divide Black and brown communities, but what he actually did is he united us against him. And all of the folks who show up in support of him always like to ask, well, do you live here? Are you from CD 14? And just assume because we're Black that we can't live in CD 14, which is a little wild. If you've listened to any of his debates, when we were at one and we all turned our backs to him and he started speaking in Spanish to try and make it so that he could talk about us behind our backs, literally behind our backs because we had our back face to him. So he has got to go.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's open for Q&A. If anybody has any questions on the local LA measures.
County. We're not going to do the city measures, just to be clear, just the county.
Thank you, Gina. Yes, Paul.
I had a question. As some of you know, I'm a member of the ADAs of Southern California, and we had a board meeting, and the issue they wanted to talk about with the bond is that usually bond issues, the money never gets allocated to where it's supposed to go. There's this Alice Steck, who's an pro-environmentalist, who's for saving the Bologna wetlands. She mentioned that every time they put a bond issue up, the money never goes to where it's needed. And so they I think it was, let me look at the thing real quick, not to waste anybody's time. Here it is. Let's see. No, not that one. Which one? I'm sorry, I apologize. I don't remember which one that bond was, but I think it had to do with the fire department. And it was to raise money, but the downside is that the money never goes there. So if anybody knows anything about this, I'm very curious.
Carol, I think you addressed that a little bit. Do you want to? Yeah.
Well, it's the funds are for Measure E for emergency response and infrastructure special parcel tax, the funds are supposed to be dedicated funds and other county departments can't use them.
Oh,
The LA County fire isn't funded by the general fund. It's a special district within the county government. And fire and paramedic services are funded through a special tax that was approved by voters in 1997. And that tax is tied to our annual property taxes. So, and there's also an independent citizens oversight committee to check that the funds for Measure E get used as it's stated in the proposition. So,
perfect.
yeah.
Thank you, Carol.
So I think that's a really important point that you raised, Paul, and thank you for raising that. And I think that's, something Gina was talking about with Measure A. So, the issue sometimes becomes, is this money actually going to what they're saying it's intended to go? And so that may very well be true in general with the bonds, but it sounds like those working on this bond, which what is its Measure E, really took care to put it in the body of it, in the writing of it. These funds are going to what we're saying they're going to. So if that makes sense. So thank you, Paul, and thank
Where
you,
they're
Carol.
designated. Yes, thank you.
Yes. We do have a few more minutes. I'm looking at the chat and it's cracking me up. But are there any other questions before we close? Yes, Elise.
Hey all, thanks for this call. It's been so informative. Glad I joined. If I understand correctly, Gina mentioned something about removing language about marriages between a man and a woman. Did I understand that correctly? So who's funding the opposition to that?
I actually didn't look into the opposition on it because I couldn't easily find any actually.
Okay.
Before that was the Family First, or what was the group out of Utah is who originally financed Prop 8. And
Right.
to my
Okay.
knowledge, they're not coming after this one. So
Okay.
apparently it's not. And again, this is just in the event, we've seen with Roe v. Wade what can happen at the federal level, because right now we have federal protections that, that override this horrible language that we have in our California Constitution. But because we've seen what the Supreme Court is able to do, we want to make sure nothing reverts back to that Prop 8 language.
Right. That's a good point. I was thinking, okay, this is a moot point because of the Supreme Court. But yeah, I forgot what's happened recently. So thank you all for this.
Sure.
We have 1 minute left if there is a burning desire question. Okay. With that, we do want to drop, I don't know, Dennis, if you already did it. So these were the state props. These were the LA County measures. There's other things happening. And so one of the voter guides that we recommend is the Move Left Voter Guide. And I think Dennis will go ahead and drop that in the chat. And again, thank you so much all for coming. This was recorded. It will be on our website tomorrow, on our webinars page under our resources tab. We will also email you all a thank you with a link to the recording, as well as a link to the resources that we've dropped here. If you liked what you heard, put 5 on it. I know Dennis has dropped the donate link a couple of times. And I want to thank the props and measures team for all the work and time you put into this. It was a lot of research, a lot of time. Thank you. And with that, we will formally close tonight's event, and we'll stop recording and we'll stop streaming to live to Facebook Live. We will stay on for a few minutes if there was just anything, any questions we didn't get to.